Tonight, we are diving into the longest and most significant chapter in the entire story of humanity. The true beginning of human existence, an age that stretched for more than 2 million years, an age that witnessed everything, because it is where everything truly started. This is the story of the Old Stone Age, not the Middle Stone Age and not the New Stone Age, although yes, there was also a Middle and a New Stone Age later on. First, you will see how the very first human created a simple stone tool that completely transformed his life. Second, you will discover how humans first encountered fire and learned how to control it for the very first time in history. Third, I will take you through the story of the Great Migration, the greatest adventure humanity has ever undertaken. Fourth, you will hear the story of the encounter between Homo sapiens and the Neanderthals in the cold lands of Europe, how they lived side by side, interbred, competed, and eventually how the Neanderthals vanished, leaving only us behind. Fifth, you will witness the great cultural awakening, the moment when humans became artists and creators for the first time. And finally, I will take you inside a complete day in the life of a Stone Age tribe, where you will live with them from sunrise to nightfall, hunting, cooking, playing, performing rituals, and sleeping. You will see how life was brutally hard, yet still rich with love, cooperation, and moments of joy despite all the hardships. 2 million years ago, humans were nothing more than small, cute, naked creatures walking upright on 2 legs across the vast and dangerous plains of Africa. Powerful predators surrounded them, creatures stronger than humans by hundreds of times. There were no homes to protect them, no fire to keep them warm, and certainly no F-35 fighter jet to defend them. So the question becomes almost unbelievable. How did this fragile, innocent-looking creature transform from a constantly hunted prey, terrified even of its own shadow, into the ruler of this immense planet? This story carries lessons you likely never imagined in your life, lessons about creativity and innovation. When humans face the impossible and refuse to give up in the face of overwhelming challenges. Lessons about cooperation and teamwork when life is unforgiving and leaves no room for the weak. Lessons about curiosity and bravery when a human dares to explore what lies beyond the unknown horizon. And before we begin, if you enjoy the content we share here, even just a little, do not forget to hit the subscribe button, leave a like, share the video with your friends, and tell me in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is right now. And if you are listening early in the morning, get up and make yourself a cup of hot coffee, and don't you dare put sugar in it. But if you are listening late at night before sleep, do not get excited and go make coffee. Just relax, close your eyes, and drift into sleep. Now, let us begin this journey. 2,300,000 years ago, in a region we now call Kenya in East Africa, the sun rose over wide green plains that stretched endlessly toward the far horizon. Massive acacia trees dotted the landscape like ancient sentinels, and enormous animals grazed peacefully. Giant elephants, towering giraffes, and countless herds of zebras and swift antelopes moving like waves across the grass. Yet beneath this calm beauty lay a world filled with danger and death at every turn. Hungry lions lurked in tall grass, waiting patiently for the perfect moment to strike, while clever hyenas moved in large packs, scanning the land for any weak creature they could tear apart. In this harsh and violent world lived a small and fragile being known as Homo habilis. The name means the skilled man in ancient Latin, and soon you will understand exactly why he earned that title. Homo habilis was short, barely taller than 1 meter and 30 centimeters. His body was thin and weak, lightly covered with hair, and his face resembled that of an ape more than that of a modern human. His brain was still small, though slightly larger than that of the apes sharing the same environment, a tiny step forward in a world where a tiny step could mean survival. One ordinary morning in that distant past, something occurred that would forever alter the course of history. A young man from the Homo habilis tribe, whom we will call Caro, sat near the edge of a small river. He was around 20 years old, visibly thin from hunger, his ribs faintly outlined beneath his skin, his eyes constantly scanning his surroundings with caution, as if the air itself could betray him. In front of him lay a large piece of black volcanic stone, and in his right hand he held another stone, smaller but heavier, gripped tightly like the only weapon he had. He had not eaten properly for 2 days, surviving only on dry fruits and bitter roots, the kind of food that keeps you alive but never makes you feel strong. The day before, he had watched a massive lion bring down a zebra not far from his hiding place. He had witnessed the dust, the struggle, the final collapse. After the lion finished feeding and left, hyenas and vultures rushed in to consume what remained, tearing at the carcass with a cruelty that felt almost mechanical. When all the predators finally disappeared, Caro and his tribe approached carefully, step by step, ready to run at the first sound. They found large bones with scraps of meat still clinging to them, but they faced a problem that stopped them cold. They could not break the bones with their hands. The bones were too hard, the meat was trapped between joints, and human teeth were too weak to tear it apart. Inside those bones, however, was something incredibly valuable. Fatty bone marrow, packed with calories and energy, like a hidden treasure sealed behind stone walls. The question was simple, but deadly. How do you reach it? Slowly, an idea began to take shape in Caro's mind. He remembered seeing a stone once fall onto another stone and shatter into sharp fragments. Not a thought, not a plan, just an accident he had witnessed. But what if he tried to do that intentionally? What if he struck one stone against another, not out of anger or fear, but with purpose, aiming to create a sharp edge capable of cutting meat? He raised the smaller stone and slammed it against the larger one. A loud noise echoed, but nothing happened. He tried again. A second strike sent a small chip flying. He struck again and again and again, until his hands ached from the effort and his wrists felt like they might split. Then, after countless attempts, after failure piled on failure, something remarkable happened. A large flake broke free and dropped to the ground, its edge razor sharp, like a blade that nature itself had been hiding inside the stone. Caro picked it up carefully and stared at it, his eyes wide with shock and pure joy, as if he had just stolen fire from the gods, without even knowing fire yet. It was a tool. For the first time in history, a living creature had intentionally created a tool using its own hands. Caro rushed toward the zebra remains as his tribe watched in amazement, their faces frozen between disbelief and hunger. He pressed the sharp stone against the meat and pushed. It sliced through effortlessly, as if it were a modern steel knife, clean and decisive, turning a hopeless situation into a solvable problem. Piece by piece, he separated meat from bone with growing confidence and skill. Then he took a large bone and smashed it with another stone until it cracked open, revealing the rich marrow inside. Food, energy, survival. The tribe gathered quickly, eating eagerly, driven by hunger and excitement. Soon, others began copying him, striking stone against stone, trying to make tools of their own, each hit echoing like a drumbeat announcing a new era. Today, scientists refer to these early tools as Oldowan tools, named after Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, where they were first discovered. They were simple, yet revolutionary, because this single invention changed human life forever. Humans could now cut meat, break bones, and access precious marrow. They could consume more protein, more fat, and more energy than ever before. And as their diet improved, their brains grew larger, making them smarter and more capable of innovation. A powerful cycle was born. Better tools led to better food. Better food built bigger brains, and bigger brains created even better tools. The tool was not limited to food alone. Humans used it to cut branches and craft long sticks for defense, to dig into the ground for edible roots and tubers, and to create even more complex tools. Over countless generations, tools gradually became more refined and precise, evolving from crude, broken stones into carefully shaped implements with sharp edges on every side, expanding from a single tool into a whole collection of knives, scrapers, drills, and hammers. Humans were no longer helpless victims of nature. They became thinkers and problem solvers, using intelligence to survive in a world that showed no mercy. Yet the tool was only the first step. Something else was waiting, something more powerful and more dangerous than any tool ever made. Fire. Hundreds of thousands of years passed after Karo created the first stone tool. Humans continued to evolve, and a new, stronger, more intelligent species appeared. Homo erectus, the upright man, named because he walked fully upright on two strong legs. He was taller, roughly 1 meter and 80 centimeters, with a stronger body and a much larger brain than Homo habilis. His tools became more advanced, beautifully crafted hand axes with balanced, symmetrical edges, not just random sharp stones, but designs that hinted at planning and skill. Despite all this progress, humans still faced a devastating challenge: the cold. During that era, the climate constantly shifted between warm phases and brutal ice ages. When cold periods arrived, temperatures dropped dramatically, even in equatorial Africa. Nights were deadly. Freezing air pierced the bones, darkness swallowed everything, and the night was filled with terrifying sounds. Lions roaring in the distance, hyenas laughing in the shadows like something mocking their fear. Humans huddled in caves or beneath trees, trembling from cold and danger, waiting anxiously for sunrise, as if sunrise itself were a rescue. Fire had always existed in nature. Lightning ignited dry forests, and volcanoes poured molten lava across the land. Humans feared fire and fled from it like every other animal. But over time, something changed. Humans noticed predators avoided fire. They noticed burned ground stayed warm long after flames died. They noticed meat touched by fire tasted better and was easier to chew. Slowly, over tens of thousands of years, humans began to approach fire instead of running from it. They carried burning branches from wildfires back to their shelters and tried to keep them alive by feeding them dry wood, guarding the flame like a living creature that could die at any moment. Fire, however, was unpredictable. It often went out unexpectedly or spread out of control, and the same flame that could save them could also destroy everything. Then came one unforgettable night, a bitterly cold winter night around 1 million years ago, somewhere in East Africa. A small Homo erectus tribe of about 20 people huddled inside a narrow cave. The cold outside was lethal. The wind screamed, and darkness was absolute, like the world had been erased beyond the cave entrance. A middle-aged man named Zorro tried desperately to light a fire using old branches, but the wood was damp and refused to burn. Children cried from the cold, their small bodies shaking, and women clutched them tightly, trying to warm them with their own bodies, as if love alone could defeat winter. Zorro felt frustration and anger boil inside him. In a moment of despair, he grabbed a stone and struck it hard against another. A tiny spark flew. Zorro froze, not from cold this time, but from shock. He struck again, and another spark appeared, stronger this time. His heart raced, his eyes widened. He placed dry grass in front of him and struck the stones again and again. Sparks flew like tiny stars falling from the sky, and suddenly a flame appeared. A small fire came to life, consuming the dry grass. Zorro shouted in triumph as the tribe rushed toward him, faces lighting up with disbelief and hope. He added small branches, then larger ones, until a strong fire burned inside the cave. Warmth spread, light filled the darkness, and hands stretched toward the flames as life returned to their bodies. That night, no one slept. They sat around the fire, mesmerized by the dancing flames, watching light move like a living spirit. It was the most beautiful night they had ever known. From that moment on, humanity was forever changed. Humans learned to create fire whenever they wished, by striking stones or rubbing sticks together. Fire transformed life in extraordinary ways. It provided warmth, allowing humans to live in cold lands and high mountains. It offered safety, keeping predators at bay. It brought light, pushing back the terrifying darkness and extending life beyond sunset. And it revolutionized food. Cooked meat was easier to eat, safer, and more nutritious. Cooking destroyed parasites and released more energy from food. Scientists believe cooking played a crucial role in the rapid growth of the human brain, which consumes around 20% of the body's energy. Fire became the center of social life, where people gathered at night to eat, talk, and share stories, passing knowledge from generation to generation. Fire was no longer just a tool for survival. It became a symbol of civilization, the defining line between humans and all other animals. And with fire came a new question, one that burns inside every curious mind. What lies beyond Africa? What exists past the distant horizon? Thus began the greatest journey in human history. For a long time, all humans lived only in Africa, the cradle of humanity. But climate changes, population growth, and resource scarcity pushed some tribes to move. Following animals and water, step by step, generation after generation, humans left Africa without fully realizing it. Homo erectus led the way, spreading into Arabia, the Levant, Europe, and Asia. The journey was deadly. Heat, cold, hunger, predators, unknown landscapes. But those who survived adapted and spread across the world. Over time, new human forms emerged, including the Neanderthals in Europe, shaped by harsh climates into powerful bodies. Yet in Africa, a new human was evolving, Homo sapiens, smarter and more creative than all before. Homo sapiens appeared around 300,000 years ago. Though physically similar to later humans, their minds were different. They could think symbolically, imagine the unseen, and cooperate on a massive scale through shared beliefs. Ideas that exist only in the mind, yet can unite thousands. Around 70,000 years ago, a cognitive revolution ignited unprecedented creativity. Art, tools, rituals, and storytelling flourished, not just as hobbies, but as signs that something new had awakened inside the human mind. Homo sapiens migrated rapidly across the globe, eventually reaching Europe, where they encountered the Neanderthals. The two species coexisted, shared knowledge, and even interbred. They lived side by side in the same cold world, sometimes competing, sometimes learning, sometimes blending families without understanding the historic weight of what they were doing. But Homo sapiens had one advantage: large-scale cooperation. They could organize in bigger groups, share complex plans, and survive through collective intelligence. Over time, Neanderthals declined and disappeared, leaving traces of their genes within us, a silent reminder that we are not as alone in our history as we imagine. After becoming the only human species, Homo sapiens entered a cultural explosion. Art, music, tools, and rituals flourished. Cave paintings, figurines, and burial traditions reflected deep spiritual awareness, as if humans had begun asking questions not just about survival, but about meaning. Daily life remained harsh, filled with hunting, gathering, and constant risk, yet rich with community, storytelling, and shared purpose. Life was brutal but meaningful. Every day was a fight for survival, but also a chance for joy, connection, and creativity. A chance to laugh, to dance, to teach a child, to tell a story by firelight, to look at the stars and wonder. From a single stone struck against another began humanity's long journey. From the first spark of fire came warmth and hope. From brave migrations came discovery and survival. This story teaches us that innovation means survival. Cooperation creates strength. Knowledge must be passed on. Courage is required to face the unknown, and art and spirit are as vital as food. My personal belief is that this story reminds us of something we have lost. Our ancestors lived simply but deeply, connected to nature and to one another. Perhaps today we must relearn how to live with full hearts rather than full pockets. And now our journey across millions of years comes to an end. From the first stone tool to the greatest cave art, I hope this story moved you and added meaning to your life. If you enjoyed it, remember to subscribe, share it with those who love history and powerful stories, and tell me which part touched you the most. And until next time, the story is finished.